Excuse me. So, getting a little tired, but you know, what I was gonna say, today is Wednesday, July 16th, and in 2.5 weeks, I'll bring Jung to the United States. Well, she brought herself there. It's her dream, her goal, when she was a little girl. And that's another interesting thing about setting goals, accomplishing goals. Now, if you've listened this far into the video, yeah, like I said, if you just turn the volume down and just walk the walk with your eyes, it is kind of peaceful. But what I'm going to say is, and we had agreed that with everything that's been going on in my life, her life, you know, at our age, you're just not getting any younger. Now, there is some thought about living forever, but I'll just say this real quick. I would say, if you believe and He's in your heart and mind, and you study, even goes for me, Mr. Big Mouth. Then yeah, living forever. But our flesh and bones body on this earth is another burial site. My point is, we're getting older, and physically, flesh and blood, well, you could do about to the year 120 if we stay physically fit and our diet is superb and we don't get any other ailments. Here's what I'm getting at. My wife, Jung, had escaped from North Korea in her mid-20s, and that's a whole long story for another day when I'm not winded and hiking. But what I will say is her goal. And her mother was from Seoul. Her dad's family had land and were teachers all the way back when Korea was one whole Korea. Even when Korea was, as a nation, they were up into China. So, anyway, they were pretty good. They were in a good position. And then, you know, the Japanese invaded in 1900, 1910. And that's only 100 years ago. So, in all that, the family learned to be Japanese interpreters and learned to help just get through it, right? I mean, when someone invades your country, other than just standing there willing to commit suicide, you know, anyway. But secretly, he did his part for Korea, in which kept a small network of people pro-Korean up there. And like I said, I'll get into it later. But getting back to the goals. Wow. Even when, because her father had these different guys traveling. And you got to remember back in the day, they had already known about the Silk Road and about foreigners and about Christians and white people coming, and it wasn't a lot, but so they had already known of a big bright world out there other than the Japanese occupation and then the North Korean dictator taking over his whole family line. But anyway, at a young age, he was telling my wife, hey, there's a different world out there. Don't believe what they're telling you. And so her whole life, you know, she would tell me stories about listening to the radio secretly and talking in secret. She'd even do it today, right? Like when there's something like she feels that is delicate, she'll lower her voice and she'll talk like this and she'll say, hey, Aaron, this is what I want you to know. And then I'll say, you don't have to whisper anymore. And then she'll say, oh yeah, right. So I'm sharing this now because you know, she's a wonderful woman, like any woman is, right? Everyone has their own special way about them. But this is her story, our story. And did we really want to share it? I mean, we're private. And then I went ahead and, you know, put stuff on YouTube, which I only did it to learn how to use YouTube because I saw where my friends were into faceless YouTube and they were doing well. And I thought, man, how hard can it be? Well, it can be hard like anything else. You got to put some work into it. But once you figure it out, it pays pretty well. So with Zhang, and I do apologize for talking about that because most importantly, Zhang and her goals as a young girl. I mean, she witnessed a lot of stuff growing up in North Korea. And, you know, she would tell me stories about not having any food, about only eating cabbage and small rice and pieces of corn, and literally she would tell me scouring mountainsides like this for mushrooms or berries or flowers. And if you ever seen like some Korean TV food shows or other shows or whatever, they're eating flowers, it's a real thing. I mean, I'm sure it's all over the world, but like for me, like growing up, I would have never thought to eat a flower, but it was prevalent the way she was growing up. So then she talked about not really any electricity. So imagine the things you grew up with today that just seemed normal. There was a time in our country's history and other people's history where you had candles, you had wood, you had fires, you had fire sticks. And I don't mean a fire stick by video stick. I mean like an actual stick wrapped in rags, in kerosene or whale blubber, and you light it and it stays lit through the night to walk. So, this is just one of a beginning talking points about her life, our life, and getting back to goals. So even at a young age, you know, I remember she was telling me a story about how she went to an event and they gave her, I think she said she went to school, and they gave her a pin. You know those pins that all the North Koreans wear on their, above their heart, right here, right? Well, she said wasn't wearing it. She threw it down and she said it was going to pierce her clothes. And if you knew the way Jong-wol kind of is, like when she would say something like that, your response would be like, okay, you got it, whatever you want. And some women are like that. So anyway, she was telling me stories about that. And then stories about walking forever. You know, no real roads, dirt paths like this. And up and down these hills. And later on, we'll talk about all that stuff. I'll sit her down because she wants to do it anyway. She feels that no one in her family is left alive. She's already, when she came over here and had to spend all that time in quarantine and be debriefed and investigated by Korean government, US government, DOD. I think she said it was the DOD was one, NSA was one. She didn't know who all they were. They didn't really all identify, but they were put in, like, if you know anything about this kind of stuff, when you come over, they put you like on this compound, and you kind of stay like in a hotel, and you get briefed and stuff, and you can't leave, and you're under guard, and you go through this process of investigating. And so just in that short time, because she was on the run, she crossed the river, went into China, was in China for a year, went through Vietnam, got into Cambodia. And again, we'll make specific video explaining all these points, but I'm getting back to the goals. And just when you think your goals are out there, well, if you just start a goal and set at it and stick with it, sometimes it may take years, right? You've heard this before from many different walks of life, from all the people out there. And in reflection to her life as a young girl, she said even at the age of 8, 9, 10, She's like, I'm going to the United States of America. I'm going to live and be free. She said, these people are free. And that's all she ever heard about. That was the one place she had to go to be free. Of course, we know now today, a lot of countries you can be free in. So, but in Cambodia, there's a whole story there. But she told me this, and I'll never forget it. She said there was these Cambodian police, and she said they didn't look like normal Cambodians. She said they looked bigger, taller, and they didn't look like normal Cambodians. And she had been hiding around the corner waiting for the South Korean embassy to open up. And this is in Cambodia. And so there was North Korean agents who had, when people cross the border and they find out who they are and they hear of information that there's actual North Korean agents. I don't know about today, but I'm sure there are. But like they would track you, follow you, and they've made movies about it. I just walked through some spider webs, but they've made movies about all that stuff. So anyway, these agents had, I guess, heard word of her and her group had come all the way there, and so they were hiding around the corner. My understanding is, and they're waiting, and they had gone several times to get in, and these policemen would come and they'd say, no, wait, not yet. And they would tell her where to wait. And she was with, I think, a couple other ladies. And and even at one point, when, I don't remember exactly, but she said they were out in the street. They thought they saw North Korean agents pointing to them and wanting to go get them. And these Cambodian policemen walked up to these guys and told them they weren't around, they had left. So these guys had left. And again, I'll let her tell the story. And I mean, if you're gonna make up a story like this, I don't know, but so I believe her. But anyway, so finally, when it opened up, these policemen came and stood in the way, I guess, in between, so these women could go inside, and these North Korean agents that were coming up to get them, and they got inside, and then they were good. And then, like I said, my wife said she feels they were like angels, in which they could have been. So she gets there, she gets to South Korea, and then from there, hold on. All right, big rock. From there, fast forward, after getting cleared, getting through all her medicals, being okayed and given a new life, they made her take a test to see her IQ levels. She scored high, and they said you should go into finance or medical. So she went to medical, and to tell you how wonderful the South Korean government is, they helped her out with some money. She went to a nice university called Hanyang University and received a bachelor's degree in medical science, and then she became a nurse at Bobath Hospital. Well, first she worked at the Hanyang University, and then went to work at Bobath. And in one of our earlier video clips, and again, I only made YouTube how to figure out how to do it, how to use it, but Anyway, it's in there of some of her initial friends that had worked with her there. And then working. She got some dogs for emotional support because she would have like PTSD from life in Korea. Because you understand that the Korean military can show up at your door and shake you down at any moment, or want sex from the women, or just steal your food or whatever. So, and there's a story about her mom trying to go back to Seoul, and she gets to Seoul, or no, she gets to the border crossing to go from North Korea to South, and they're like, where are you going? Who are you? And she's like, I'm gonna go, I want to see my parents. I want to see my family in Seoul. And they're like, oh yeah? No. How about 12 years in a labor camp? And that's where they sent her. And my wife was telling me that, so from a young age, here she is with her brothers and sisters growing up, being adults, taking care of the family, because their mom ended up in, of all things, you know, be sent to prison because you want to go visit your family in another country. That's the same country, the same people, speak the same language. Man. So, fast forward to today. As you can tell, I like to hike. I like to do a lot of outdoor stuff when I can. And I was hiking up near Seoul. There's an old Joseon Dynasty house, castle, Namham Dangsang, wee, squirrel. And so to tell you, when you have stuff that you're looking at, obviously it's been rebuilt, but when you go down the history of thousands of years old and how they lived, it's interesting to take a look at, because in the United States, we're only a couple hundred years old. And in the United States, to go back thousands of years old, you know, we have the Native American Indians, but they were so nomadic that the only thing they left behind are like the petroglyphs and the etchings and the rocks. And anyway, I was hiking up there, and here's this lady walking behind me, and she kept kind of like, I don't know, just following where I went for a kilometer or so. I don't think it was that long. Could have been just a couple hundred yards, but... And so finally I was like, hey, can I help you? What's going on? And there's another video earlier that shows that, but she didn't know hardly any English, whereas today she's come a long way. And that's been 4 years ago, right? But so because we've evolved to modern technology, we both whipped out our phones and we're doing the translations. And she was like, hey, you know, I'm a nurse. And if you understand how a nurse works in Korea, it's like being in the military. Day shift, mid shift, night shift, one rotation in between for sleep. So you're kind of zombied, and you don't have a whole lot of free time because, you know, like anything, there's not a whole lot of nurses, or there's a high turnover. And she just said that she had never been this close physically to a white person with blue-green eyes, and she wanted to know where was I from. And because she thought I was European or German. And I said, no, from the USA. And so I told her, I said, well, look, let's talk, share backgrounds, because at that point in my life, I just traveled all over and met all kinds of people. And I had never been, that was the first time that was kind of like said to me. It kind of made me feel weird, so I just wanted to have the situation feel comfortable. And anyway, so we just spent the rest of the afternoon hiking around Namham Samdang Castle, and it's just east, a little northeast of Seoul. We hung out, we were talking, walking around, and then we went and had a chicken soup dinner. And then it was her that asked me, she said, hey, do you care if we stay pen pals? And I said, yeah, I do not mind at all. I do not care. I would encourage that, because this is the first time that I mean, I've been asked to stay friends before, but like just, this was different. And so we just kept in contact, talking, and then fast forward to today. Now we've been married for almost 3 years. Okay, 4 years. So we met, and then 6 months later we were married. So and now goals, back to goals, right? Here we are in 2.5 weeks. Call it what you want, but this woman is achieving her goal. And then you could say, oh, she's using you, and I don't think so, man. I think it's just she believed, and I'm kind of a pretty smart guy when it comes to, like, when you get to be our age, right? When you're 50 and older, you understand a whole lot of nonsense talk, so you know how to cut through the crap, right? With her, there's none. It's all open book. So here we are, end of the hike, and getting ready to get back on the bike. And to be honest, I mean, I'm happy to help her achieve her goal. I mean, of all the things I've set goals on and I've backed out on, failed on, it makes me feel good to help someone else achieve their goal. So let's see, maybe the lens is fogged. Look at the bees. All right, before I upset them, let's go change and get ready to get out of here. All right, check back in a minute.